So for our next project, we're going to focus on creating a mandala. A mandala is a circular pattern-based image. So it's not realistic. It's not really representational in the sense that it's going to look like a person or an animal or a landscape. We're going to focus on patterns and geometry and symmetry and these things like positive and negative space or dark areas and light areas to create something that is enjoyable to look at. But not only are we going to think about what it's like to look at the artwork, we're really going to focus in on what it's like to make the artwork. And a big part of working with a mandala is thinking about the process and using it as an act of mindfulness or slowing down, thinking about what you're doing just with the art making, and using art as a process to relax and de-stress. So we're going to use this process, but we'll need a few materials. To get started, you will need an 8" by 8" square of paper. In your kit, there should be 3 to 4 pieces of thick watercolor paper that are all the same size. For this project, you're only going to need one. We're going to set the other ones aside for other projects. To also get started with this, you're of course going to want a pencil. We're going to start off in pencil, even though we're finishing our design in ink. We're going to start with pencil. We're going to have an eraser for the big areas that we may want to change or adjust. And it's important to have a sharpener available too so that you can keep a nice sharp point on your pencil, especially when drawing the circles. To work on this project, you will also want a couple of extra tools. The first one will be a compass. This is a flat compass and it will be used to help us draw circles by rotating around. We'll go over how to use this shortly. And you will also want a ruler. The ruler can also be used to check to make sure you have the right paper. So before you get started, take your ruler down. We're going to put the line on the edge of our paper, and our paper should be near the 8" mark. And if you turn your paper, if it's a square, it should be about the same again. Yep. Both are around 8, and that tells me I have the right paper. Now, we will be finishing these off in ink, so you will want to have various pens and markers from your Bic round stick to your thin and thick Sharpie, but we're going to wait until we get this completely planned out in pencil. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my paper down. I am going to start by finding the center of the paper. Now some people may be thinking we can measure and find the center, and we know half of 8 is around 4. But a really quick way to do this is by connecting the corners. So I'm going to take my ruler, I'm going to line up with one corner, and I'm going to check my other corner. And before I draw, I'm going to make sure both corners are on the edge of my ruler. Now here's the key detail. If I put my fingers in the center of my ruler can spin around and rotate. So what I always do is I line my ruler up, and then I spread my finger out, thumb and index finger, and I press down, and that'll keep it nice and solid. I'm just going to take my pencil and just very gently push it into the ruler to draw that line. And I'm going to end up with a nice light line, so light that you can barely see it. We want to start out light because we can always ink over these and erase. I'm going to repeat the process by going the opposite direction. If it's uncomfortable for you to do this, you can always rotate your paper. Line up my two corners. Thumb and finger spread out. Oh, got to check my corner there. Checking my corners, everything's good. Thumb and finger spread out, pressing down, pushing the pencil against, lightly going across. Now since mandalas are centered around circles, and you can use one or many circles to create your design, I'm going to come in with a compass. Now the center of your circle is going to be the brass piece in the center of the compass here. So I'm going to line that up with where my X meets in the center. Now this is an 8" by 8" piece of paper, so half of that is 4. You're going to want to pick a hole somewhere in between the 3" radius and the 4" radius to make a whole circle. And how you do this is I'm going to pick a hole right here, and I am just going to rotate it around, and that is going to draw a circle. Now if I want to draw other circles in my design, if they're tiny circles, I'm going to make sure the center of that brass piece meets up with where the center of my circle is with the X, and I can draw those on the inside by moving my pencil around. If I remove it later and I want to come back in and do another design, I can also come back over, hold it in the center, and do a different radius or design, and this will give me a concentric circle, or a circle that has the same center. So this will allow us to come back and draw multiple circles in your mandala design. So after you get your circle set up, you can start adding patterns in there and dividing details. So for me, I might want to start experimenting with adding a square into here by connecting the corners. And this is where you get to add your own creative flair. The goal is to add detail and take your time and try to make it as even as possible. So I'm just going to show you a couple tricks here. You can use corners and things to make smaller shapes and plan it out. And I'm always drawing lightly because I may change my mind on this. So each person's mandala is going to be different. Some people prefer circles, some people prefer squares. You're going to add in different patterns. So I might go through and I might make these different areas. You can also use your compass to create different intersecting lines. So maybe I want half circles. Okay, I find that I like where this goes at the 1 inch. I can go through and add some different patterns. So anywhere where lines intersect, you can use that to make other circles and designs. I believe that was 1 inch. It's good to pay attention to what you do so you can redo it. And I might go through and add that in all my corners. So what I'm going to do is go through with my pencil. I am just going to build up, and I'll go back and measure a nice design. And again, if you forget your radius, just come back, put it on the center, measure out. Oh, I'm actually on the 2 inch dot. So always good to check yourself. And I'm going to go through and I'm just going to make patterns. That's all I'm going to do. I'm going to fill this in with some symmetry. You can change it up and have unique areas, but I'm going to try to keep mine pretty symmetrical. And I'm going to go through and add design. So I have big patterns. Maybe in some of these areas I might fill it with smaller circles. I'm going to go through and just plan with my pencil. So that's your job. Set up your paper, find the center, create a large circle, and then start adding patterns throughout. That way you can repeat different details. And we're just going to hand draw these. They might be not perfect, but the goal is to go through, take our time, and really enjoy the process of creating geometric patterns and shapes. So get your mandala set up, start drawing it out. We'll talk about what to do next with some inking after you get your design drawn.